believe that, again, this goes back to the Hindu tradition in which I practice, that our spiritual evolution depends a lot on our previous lifetimes. So to go back to Sam Harris and his thoughts on free will, in the Hindu tradition, we say that our thoughts originate from our previous imprints, from our previous lifetimes. So if you have not evolved in your previous lifetimes, you will probably take a few more lifetimes to get there. So it's only possibly that 1.5–2% of people who will actually be looking at consciously evolving and getting better and moving to a higher spiritual level. It's not for everyone, which is all right, because that again is a balance of nature. Because if everyone went on the spiritual path, then there would be an imbalance again. Life would not be the same.
Interesting. I never thought about it like that, but that's actually because I was listening to an audiobook the other day where it was I think it was called Many Lives, Many Masters, and it was talking about past lives, and I'd love to talk to you about that, like in terms of your tradition and your beliefs. So in the book it was saying basically there's different levels of awareness, of consciousness, and of being, and there's the true divinity of some sort, and then there's the master souls, what they called, where they've kind of evolved fully, and so our goal is to get to that. In your traditional belief and your experience, like how can a soul move through time? How can we evolve? And what are these lessons that we have to learn? Are they specific to each individual, or do you think there are universal lessons that everyone kind of needs to gain over the course of many lifetimes? I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts on all that.
In the Hindu tradition, we talk of something called karma. But karma not in the way that the West understands it as retribution. I see these t-shirts which says, karma is a big karma, I can send you a list of people I want you to visit. In the Hindu tradition, karma is just cause and effect. So if you have had, you've done good deeds in the past, if you've, kind of absolved yourself in this lifetime, perhaps you will have a better life in the coming lifetime. So karma is something which is not just your own individual karma. There are different kinds of karmas. So for example, you're born in a family whose karma you bear, right? For example, if it's a genetic problem, so the karma also comes to you as a result of being born in a certain family. And then you're born in a certain country or a certain society. So there is a collective karma of the society where you reside. And then now you will notice with the corona, if it weren't for corona, I would not have been able to explain global karma, where all the 7 billion people on the planet are facing a similar situation. So this is something that has been described extensively in our texts. And it is this karma which we need to keep washing off by doing good deeds, by involving ourselves in compassionate activities, and just overcoming all the temptations that one sees in life. Because in the Hindu tradition, we talk of life as Maya, or an illusion, which again, reminds me of all this talk of simulation hypothesis.
Yeah.
Because I see the parallels. Because what are you saying in a simulation hypothesis? That, life doesn't exist. It's just, we are seeing it playing out, pixelated, whatever. That's exactly what Maya is all about. It's just an illusion. So again, you can see the parallels there as well.
Well, I'm actually really interested in your thoughts about free will, because you mentioned it a couple times, and thinking about it in terms of past lives, it's almost like a lot of things are brought upon you from your past lives, and not only your past lives, your family and your generational trauma that you carry, or your karma that you carry. So how much do you think is our responsibility and on the individual to kind of overcome some of that karma and decide to do good or decide to be better? And how do you think people are able to overcome, whether it's generations of making bad decisions or, you know, many lives of making bad decisions, like how are people able to take control of that and really elevate themselves to the next level of consciousness, whatever that is?
So karma doesn't absolve you of the responsibilities that life places before you.
Mm.
On the contrary, it teaches you the lesson that perhaps if you are able to work towards spiritual elevation, which is by different ways and means, by meditating, by doing, sadhana, which is a practice, by leading a disciplined life, all of these things, you are actually slowly cutting down on your bank account of karma until it comes to a zero, at which point you're almost liberated. So the accountability is on you. The onus is on you as an individual for having taken life, having taken birth as a human being. Now, this does not apply to animals because they do not have the high level of consciousness which we do. But having been born with a high consciousness, it is imperative for us as human beings to ensure that we do something to evolve, to move higher up in the spiritual spectrum. Because that is the only thing which will give you respite from the cycle of birth and death and rebirth. And the ability to wash off karmas only comes in a human life.
But you
So
can, but that means you can potentially reincarnate into other forms, but you can only evolve if you choose to come back into a
absolutely
life. Okay.
So the Vedas talk of 8.4 million different types of forms you can take.
Wow.
It could be, you start like a fish and then, you develop into a reptile, which again, you can draw several parallels, with, the theories of evolution, but in a simpler fashion. 8.4 million ways of taking birth, but we are lucky enough to be humans with an elevated consciousness where we are able to think, we're able to understand, we're able to actually know that something greater than us exists, which may not be true for any other living being, because their consciousness is not elevated to that stage.
So they just might not be able to think about it in that way.
So in the Hindu tradition, it's this great responsibility to be born as a human being. Out of the 8.4 million types of beings, it's a responsibility and it's a huge opportunity for you to just liberate and break away from this. Again, that's called a chakra, interestingly, the chakra of life and death.
Whoa.
It's the wheel of life and death and rebirth and, death again.
Yeah.
And life.
I keep coming back to the thought of things coming full circle and just and cyclical, and like that idea just keeps coming back. And especially now that I look more into reincarnation and life and death, it's like, what do you think the circle and cycles have to, like, why is that so important in our lives that it keeps, coming up as a recurring theme?
Again, if I go back to what the Vedas have to say, everything is a chakra in a sense. The word chakra is even used to denote a king, for example. A chakravarti is one who runs the wheels of his kingdom. So everything in this universe is cyclical. If you look at how the universe operates at a macro level, or if you look at how an atom operates at a micro level. So eventually, I think this cycle of life, of being, has to be acknowledged. And this is something which we as humans are refusing to acknowledge until nature, forces us to come to terms with it. So even if it's just looking at a molecule of water, how it goes through the entire cycle to come back to us in the form that, we can consume it, for example. So I think every lesson which the universe puts out to us is to say everything is a cycle.
Interesting.
So, and the funny thing is, we all think that we turn the wheel on which we turn, as Eliot put it beautifully. The wheel is already turning. It's just that we in our illusion think that we are the ones who are turning the wheel.